My name is Madhavi Punda, lecturer in English. Today I want to teach you on examination, the chapter on examination, written by Winston Churchill, Winston S. Churchill, Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, 1874 to 1965, was the Prime Minister of England twice. He worked as the political leader of England in two terms, 1940-45 and then 1951-55. A noted statesman and orator, he was a frequent speaker. Churchill was also an officer in the British Army, a historian, a writer and an artist. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. In 1953, he was awarded the Nobel Prize. At Harrow is an excerpt from chapter 2 Harrow of Winston S. Churchill's autobiography. Tankar autobiography thila at Harrow. A roving commission, my early life. Ye thila tankar autobiography and an examination at Harrow. Ye thila one part of his autobiography. One more. Examinations for many are not a pleasant experience. Normally examinations are not a pleasant experience for all, समस्तंक पाई, because each and everyone gets anxiety. जितेबाला आमर एग्जाम थाए then आम मुंडे गोटे टेंशन आसे. The apprehension of not doing well makes even bright students anxious, because we thought that normally we think that perhaps the result will not be a good one, and that anxiety makes each and everyone very pensive. So read the following unit of the text and note how the writer took his entrance examination to Harrow. देखिबा आम writer Winston Churchill how he faced troubles when he attended the entrance examination to Harrow. Harrow school ले जेतेबेले आमर तंगला admission करिबा को गले, so से केमती निजो को problem face कले. I had scarcely passed my 12th birthday when I entered the inhospitable regions of examination. से कहते जे तांका जेतेबेले 12th birthday हैला, he had scarcely passed, very difficult way तांकर आसिला तापरे तांकर बेसी problem. When I entered the inhospitable region, inhospitable that means is a great critical period. Inhospitable regions of examination आमरा आसिगला तापर टाइम ही गला after 12th birthday तांको he has to face the inhospitable regions, the difficult situation of his life, which is normally of examinations. Examination nekire tankara thila bahut tension, through which for the next 7 years I was destined to journey. He had to journey another next 7 years with that inhospitable regions. ए जो तांकर experience, ए जो तांकर difficult situation, he had to pass the next 7 years. These examinations were a great trial to me. It is a very difficult task to me. That was very difficult task. The subjects which were dearest to the examiners were almost invariably those I fancied least. जोटे कि जो subject normally the examiners loved different subjects which are not liked by me. मुझे मोटे पसंद करे ना. तो those I fancied least, I loved them very less. I would have liked to have been examined in history, poetry and writing essays. It says that आम normally ये कथा होची जे the writer, the narrator Winston Churchill loved to be examined. से चाहती examination हो a subject रे, history, poetry and writing essays. But the examiners on the other hand were partial to Latin and mathematics. But the examiners like to examine on the paper Latin and mathematics. Latin is a very difficult task and there will prevail और तांका कथा ही रुहे. So moreover the questions which they asked on both these subjects were almost invariably those to which I was unable to suggest a satisfactory answer, and that's why I could not give the satisfactory answer, because the examiners want to examine me on the papers which I fancied least, जहाँ को बहुत भल न पाए, जहाँ को खराब पाए से पेपर को से चाहती एग्जामिन करने, एंड एज ए रिजल्ट आई कुड नॉट गिव सैटिस्फैक्टरी आंसर. मुझे गोटे सैटिस्फैक्टरी आंसर दे पारे ना. आई शुड हैव लाइक्ड टू बी आस्क्ड टू से व्हाट आई न्यू, बट नॉर्मली आई वुड प्रिफर to be examined what I knew on the papers what I knew, but they always tried to ask what I did not know. But the problem is there. They wanted to examine me on the papers that I did not know. मुझे जानी नथिबी से examine करिवे. When I would have willingly displayed my knowledge, and that's why finally, without my interest, I gave the answers. They sought to expose my ignorance, but they could not understand me. They always ignored me. ସେମାନେ मते ignore करंती. ସେମାନେ मते बुझंती नहीं. This sort of treatment had only one result. As a result, I did not do well in examination. That was the reason. That's why the narrator could not do well in the examination, because he would not prefer to be examined on math and Latin. Unfortunately, the examiners always would prefer to do the same thing. This was especially true of my entrance examination to Harrow, and that was also happened in my entrance examination to Harrow. Amar achi Harrow au Eton boli duita important school London re. The headmaster, Dr. Weldon, however, took a broad-minded view of my Latin prose. Sethare thile amar headmaster Weldon, Dr. Weldon. He was a man of broad mind. Se both broad-minded thile. He was broad-minded. View of my Latin prose. He showed discernment in judging my general ability. He had the ability to understand the inner feeling of a student. So that's why he showed discernment in judging. Here discernment means judgment. He showed discernment in judging my general ability. He could judge my general ability. This was the more remarkable because I was found unable to answer a single question in the Latin paper, because I was sure that I could not get qualified. ମୁଁ ଭାବିଥିଲି ଯେ ମୁଁ qualified ହେଇପାରିବି ନାହିଁ in the entrance exam, and that's why Dr. Weldon, he was such a person who could find out the inner ability. I wrote, so this was the more remarkable because I was found unable to answer a single question in the Latin paper. I was unable to give a single question, to give the answer on a single question in the Latin paper. So that's why I wrote my name at the top of the page. As I could not give the answer of my question paper, first of all I have to write. I had written only the name at the top of the page. ऊपरे आमर जो खातार ऊपरे मु आगो मो नाटा को लिखिली top of the page. Then I wrote down the number of the question 1. Then the second stage I wrote down the number of the question, that was 1. Then I gave a bracket because I have nothing to write. मो पाई किछि नथिला लिखिबा पई. After much reflection I put a bracket round it. So then I gave a bracket. So first of all I had written my name on the top of the page. Then I had written the number of the question 1. Then I gave a bracket, and that's why the final answer was 1 inverted and then bracket. But thereafter I could not think of anything connected with it that was either relevant or true. I could not understand ye mo pai kiछि valuable or not. Incidentally, there arrived from somewhere in particular a blot and several smudges. Unknowingly somewhere some tears had fallen. मो आखिर किछि लुह बाहर पड़ला. I gazed for 2 whole hours because I could not give the answer. That's why somewhere unknowingly from somewhere 2 drops of tears came out of my eyes. Put bahari asila. I gazed for 2 whole hours at these sad spectacles, and that's why I gazed for 2 whole hours. 2 घंटा, completely 2 hours. I had seen the paper and the smudges, the spots due to tears. ए जो मोर जो लुह पड़ी जो टीयर्स पड़ी जो स्पॉट होता ताकू मु 2 घंटा काल देखिली. सो इट वाज फ्रॉम दैट स्प्लेंडर sorry. So I gazed for 2 whole hours at these sad spectacles, and then merciful ushers, that means the examiners, the invigilators who had conducted the exam, they collected my piece of foolscap with all the others. They took away my copy and carried it up to the headmaster's table and neiki rakhidele koti headmaster's table upare. It was from these slender indication, and that was the indication of scholarship that Dr. Weldon drew the conclusion that I was worthy to pass into Harrow, and Dr. Weldon was the examiner. He checked my copy and finally I got qualified, and that's why so I got a seat in Harrow School. It is very much to his credit, and I wanted to give credit to Dr. Weldon, the person who could find out the inner feelings, who could find out the inner ability. It showed that he was a man capable of looking beneath the surface of things. I concluded that he was a man of capable, capable of looking the internal ability of a student. And finally, I got qualified. A man not dependent upon paper manifestation. He did not believe, Dr. Weldon did not believe in paper manifestation, paper check. So, paper check re believe karanti nai. I have always had the greatest regard for him. That's why I have a great respect for him, because he was such a person who could find out the inner ability of a student. In consequence of his decision, according to his decision, as a result of his decision, in consequence, I was in due course placed in the third or lowest division of the fourth or bottom firm. So finally, I was selected for fourth division, but muthili kona division muthili bottom re tale thili. The name of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order. Normally, the name of the school boys were printed in alphabetically A, B, C, D, E. So, empty once again one after another. As my name began with S, as Churchill's name began with S. So, he did not get any advantage from his name. Amar sabu na sabu sethipai A, B re diya jaye sabu. So, that's why the names of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order. And as my correct name, Spencer Churchill, began with S, as my name starts with S, I gained no more advantage from the alphabet than from the wider sphere of letters. That's why I could not get any advantage from my name. So that's why I was in fact only 2 from the bottom of the whole school, and these 2, I regret to say, disappeared almost immediately through illness or some other cause. So that's why due to my name, as my name started with S, mo na jemti start hitila S ru. So my position was just 2, just above 2 of the bottom. Mane di jan ko upar ko mor thila toladia. So that's why I regret to say, आउरी दुख लगुची. सो आई रिग्रेट टू से मते कहबा को मते कंफ्यूज लगुची जे दोज 2 also disappeared due to some illness or some other cause. The Harrow custom of calling the roll is different from that of Eton. आमर normally school मानकर सब roll number डका जाए, and the Harrow custom of calling the roll is different from that of Eton. आमर Eton school ले टिके different and Harrow school ले भी different. I have told you both Eton and Harrow are the 2 important schools or colleges in England. At Eton, the boys stand in a cluster and lift their hats. आमर normally Eton school ले the boys stand in a cluster. They stand in a cluster, group है कि ठिया होंदी, and then lift their hats. तंगा hat को उठांती when their names are called. Roll number 1, yes sir. Roll number 2, yes sir. So they lift and they lift their hats when their names are called. At Harrow, the file passed, but at Harrow it is completely different. Eton ने समस्त gathering है ठिया होंदी and they lift their hats when their numbers are called. But at Harrow, they file past a master in the schoolyard and answer one by one. They make a queue, they make a line, and when their names are called, they passed by one. They pass the file past a master in the schoolyard and answer one by one. They give their answers one by one when their names are called, when their roll numbers are called. So my position was therefore revealed in its somewhat invidious humility, and that's why मोर रोल नंबर टिके बहुत कमेंटेड थिला. It was the year 1887. एटा 1887 कथा. Lord Randolph Churchill had only just resigned his position as a leader of the House of Commons and Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he still towered in the forefront of politics. आमरा ए चर्चिल कर फादर थिले रैंडल्फ चर्चिल, लॉर्ड रैंडल्फ चर्चिल. At that time, in this year, in 1887, he also resigned from politics. He was a forefront political leader. से उड़े forefront political leader थिले. In consequence, as a result, large number of visitors of both sexes used to wait on the school steps to in order to see me march by, and I frequently heard the irrelevant comment, why he is last of all. मत सबुदिन से कमेंट सुनिमा को पड़े कहीं ना all of the people, most of the parents waited at the school step to see me. आज I belong to Lord Randolph Churchill and my father was Randolph Churchill and he was a forefront political leader. That's why everyone wants me to see at the first position, but unfortunately my roll number was called at the last, and that's why every day I had to listen any comment. मतलब गोटे कमेंट किसी ना किसी सुनिमा को पड़े. सो ये जो फर्स्ट यूनिट थिला. देन सेकेंड यूनिट, think of the role of a teacher in a student's life. Normally the role of a teacher is very vital in the life of a student. So think of the role of a teacher in a student's life. Doesn't a teacher facilitate the learning of a pupil and develop skills in him or her? आम नॉर्मली गोटे टीचर कौन चाहिए ना टू फैसिलिटेट to improve the skill in a student. Read the following unit of the text and note the role played by Mr. Somerville in the writer's education at Harrow. तो Mr. Somerville was one of the teachers जे के पढ़ाउथिले का हमरा चर्चिल को and तांको विषय से कहउछन what type of person Mr. Somerville was. He describes. I continued in this unpretentious situation, that means unexpected situation, for nearly a year, near about 1 year. However, by being so long in the lowest form, I gained an immense advantage over the clever boys. I got an advantage. I got an immense advantage over the clever boys. Because as a lower student, as the student of lower standard, कौन होला ना I gained some advantage. What type of advantage he got in his school? Read it. They all went on to learn Latin and Greek and splendid things like that. But all the clever students were taught Latin and Greek, which were very costly subjects, which were very splendid subjects. But I was taught English, but nothing in the English padha gala because I was a dunces, well, lower student, lower level student. We were considered such dunces. Dunces means slow learner or very weak students, poor students. We were considered such dunces. हमको सब dunces बोली को जाउतला, slow learner बोली को जाउतला, and that's why we could learn only English. And that was the result. We could learn only English, not mathematics, not Latin, etc. Mr. Somerville, a most delightful man. At that time, Mr. Somerville, the teacher of English, he was a delightful man. He was very delightful. He was very sincere. To whom my debt is great. जहाँ पाई मोरो debt is great. मु तांको पाई बहुत ऋणी. So I am very grateful to him. Was charged with the duty of teaching the stupidest boys. The most disregarding thing आमको तांको दिया जाए तिले he was given the charge, and Mr. Somerville was given the charge to teach the dunces, to teach the poor students, and he was a teacher of English and he was so delighted one. से बहुत delighted थिले, बहुत dutiful थिले, very sincere थिले, and he was given the charge of teaching the slow learners. गध मानू को पढ़ेबा पाई दिया जाय थिला. So that's why he knew how to teach the poor learners, how to teach the slow learners. So that's why the most disregarding thing, namely to write mere English, and he was given the charge to teach only mere English. He knew how to do it. He knew. He taught it as no one else has ever taught it. से एमती पढ़ाती जिनते वो कहीं केबे भी पढ़े नांती. He has. So he taught it as no one else has ever taught it. Not only did we learn English parsing thoroughly, आमी कल तांग ठेरो grammar सिखिलु नहीं. English parsing, that means English grammar. He also taught, but we also practiced continuously English analysis. We also learned English analysis, how to analyze English. We also learned from him. आमे ताको भी सिखिलु. So Mr. Somerville had a system of his own. He had his own system. ताको own system रे से पढ़ाती. He took a fairly long sentence and broke it up into its components by means of black, red, blue and green inks. He divided the sentences in different parts, and each part is colored with different color. सो लाइक ब्लैक रेड पिंक ब्लू एक्सेट्रा सो से कौन करती गोटे सेंटेंस को डिवाइड कर दियंती एंड एको कलरफुल कर दियंती ही टुक ए फेयरली लॉन्ग सेंटेंस एंड ब्रोक इट अप इनटू इट्स कंपोनेंट्स बाय मीन्स ऑफ ब्लैक रेड blue and green inks subject verb object relative clauses and conditional clauses conjunctive and disconjunctive clauses each had its own color and its own bracket own color own bracket everything it was a kind of drill it was one of practice से आमको सब ये practice भी कराती we did it almost daily आमे को सब दिन करूँ I remained in the third fourth 3 times as long as anyone else मु प्राय तो 3-4 थर सेठी रहिली से क्लास रे I had 3 times as much of it so मु 3 थर ताकू पढ़िली I learned it thoroughly that's why I learned it very carefully very thoroughly thus I got into my bones the essential structure of the ordinary British sentence. That's why I got everything. How to write a British sentence. I know the structure of a British sentence. How to make a sentence. How to make a British sentence. Though it is a different typical sentence and typical language. So I had. I could everything. ମୁଁ ସବୁ କରିପାରିଲି so finally which a noble thing which a noble thing and when in after years my school fellows who had won prizes and distinction for writing such beautiful Latin poetry or make their poetry and pithy Greek epigrams so ये जो clever students माने they could not get any advantage of that English माने पढ़िबा पाई they could not get chance to learn English so that's why when after their life जेतबेले बहुत बड़ा हेले से माने they Latin poetry से माने बहुत प्राइज पाइथिले they got different prizes in different subjects like Latin poetry pithy Greek epigrams etc but they could not get a chance to learn English but से माने English पढ़िबा पई से माने चांस ही पाइले नहीं to learn their living or make their way they could not get a chance to read English and to make their life तांकर chance ही पाइले नहीं I did not feel myself at any disadvantage but I could not find any disadvantage in my life by teaching by reading English मते कहीं लागिला नहीं जे मु इंग्लिश न पढ़ी कि सेमति किछि लॉस हेछि बोली naturally I am biased in favor of boys learning English I would make them all learn English मते कुआ गला मते जो माने इंग्लिश पढ़ी छथि तांका अगेंस्ट कुआ गला I was disturbed about them but I would make them all learn English but मु तांक सब इंग्लिश सिखेली and then I would let the clever ones learn Latin as an honor and Greek as a treat and in return and in result and as a result they are also told to give me some idea about Latin and Greek but the only thing I would whip them for would be for not knowing English but सेमानु केबे केबे मु रागे भी I would whip them hard for that मु भी केबे केबे तांको बहुत रागे बहुत गाली दे because they did not know what is English and that's why I was also whip them Unit 3 are not students at school fun loving तुम मान सब स्कूल ले सब fun loving थिबो नॉर्मली आमे सब पढ़ला बेले बहुत fun loving भी थिलु do young students play pranks with their school fellows normally yes समस्ते खेलंती बहुत pranks करंती pranks means मौज मजलिस मजाक करिवा so do young students play pranks with their school fellows yes read the following unit of the text and note how the writer describes a funny incident he was involved with at school our writer our narrator Churchill has also described his experience in the higher school तांकर experience कौन थिला higher school ले when he was a student at that जेतबेल से student थिले सेठी केमती से सब करी थिले he also describes he wants to share it with his readers से तांकर share करबा पई चाहुचंदी I first went to Harrow in the summer term मु फर्स्ट जाइतिली हारो को समर टर्म रे द स्कूल possessed the biggest swimming bath I had ever seen से स्कूल ले there was a great swimming bath I had ever seen so it was more like the bend of a river than a bath it was bigger than a bath but it was just like the bend of a river and it had two bridges across it and it had two bridges बड़ा बड़ा ब्रिज दिटा थिला thither as it is written in English American literature thither means there We used to repair for hours at a time and bask between our dips, eating enormous buns on the hot asphalt margin. Have you seen the tube of the vehicles? हमारे जो मोटर कार जो बड़ बड़ अच्छी सब ट्यूब सब, दिस इज asphalt margin. ये जो ता भितर बसिकी पानी भितर आमे कौन करूँ ना बहुत समय आमे वी एंटरटेन आवर्स आमे ता भितर बसिकी बहुत समय गाधो बाय टेकिंग कना आमर एनॉर्मस बंस बड़ बड़ खाद्य सब ता भितर नहीं खाई पानी भितर आमे बस जाऊ. एंड दीज प्रांक्स वी डिड इन आवर स्कूल डेज. आमे सब एमती सब प्रांक करूँ आउ कौन करूँ नेचुरली इट वाज ए good joke to come up behind some naked friend or even enemy and push him in. आमे कौन करूँ बेले बेले गोटे सब जोक करूँ बेले बेले we came behind some naked friend or even enemy जे आम शत्रु बा who was some extent naked तांको पछुक आसु and push him in तांको भितर केमती ढेल दो आमे पानी भितर को तांको ढकेल दो आमे तांको पेल दो तांको पानी भितर को. I made quite a habit of this with boys of my own size or less. बेले बेले I also did the same thing and that was my common habit. Some extent we also played some kind of funs, some pranks in our school days also. You have also तुम्हें माने भी खेली थी बने की. So anyway one day when I had been no more than a month in the school, से तबले not more than 1 month मोर जीवा गोटे मास है नहीं, not more than 1 month, I saw a boy standing in a meditative posture. I could see someone standing in a meditative posture. That means meditative posture, calm and quiet. कौन कछि ना covered with a towel. जन एमती towel घुड़ी के ठिया आइछि. I had been more. हमर सेतरे मासे रो अधिक है नहीं. I saw a boy standing in a meditative posture, wrapped in a towel on the very brink, and he could cover. He has also covered with a towel. गोटे towel घुड़ी ठिया आइछि. He was no bigger than I was. He was not so bigger than I was. So he looked as if he was a smaller one. से छोटो पिला बले दिसुथिले. So he was not bigger than I was. So I thought him fair game. So I decided it was a big game. So why not? So I went there and did the same thing what I thought to do. मुझे भाभी थी I also did the same thing. Coming stealthily, धीरे 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 very slowly, coming stealthily behind, I pushed him in. ता पछुक धीरे धीरे आसिली and ताको पानी भितर को फोपाड़ देली. So I pushed him in, holding onto his towel out of humanity. अरे ता towel काले ओदा है जीवो की. So due to humanity, I also picked up the towel. Hold the towel so that it should not get wet. या ओदा हबने. That's why I hold the towel. I was startled to see. I was shocked to see. After that, what happened? Next moment कौन है थीबो? What would happen? जहाँ है थीबो सुना. So I was startled. I was shocked. Startled means shocked. I was shocked to see a furious face emerging from the foam. I could see someone coming towards me from the foam. हमारे पानी रो फेण भितर someone a furious face emerging from the foam. मु देखिले गोटे रागी मुहटे से पानी भितर बाहर आसुची. And a being evidently of enormous strength making its way by fire stroke to the shore. से with full of strength he came to the shore. बहुत तार strength लगे कि से आसी shore रे पहुंची गला. I did the same thing. मु ताको पेले देली. But after that what would happen? कौन हैला ना I could see someone coming from the foam and with full strength he came to the shore. And कौन ही थी होता परे ना he fled but in vain. So मु ताको तल देखिली I fled दौड़ली but in vain. But the result was nothing. से मते कौन कला swift as the wind my pursuer overtook me. So पवन भलिया से उड़ी आसला and he picked up me. मते धरी पकेला. Seized me in a ferocious grip. Seized me मते इंदी जाबुड़ी धरला. Picked tightly से मते hold tightly in a ferocious grip. और तार जो ग्रिप होची हमरे जो ए जो धरंती hold tightly grip and hauled me into the deepest part of the pool. And he also hauled me मते ता भितर फोपाड़ देला पानी भितर को फोपाड़ देला. I soon scrambled out on the other side. मो कौन कली I soon scrambled out on the other side. मो पानी भितर पहरी पहरी आरपट को पळेली. and found myself surrounded by an agitated crowd, but I could see a great crowd surrounded me. मत आरपटे सब जगी की ठिया चंदी. Most of my friends also waited me. They surrounded me instantly and they came to me and surrounded me. And so I was shocked. What happened? Really, what had happened? So myself surrounded by an agitated crowd of younger boys. You are in for it, they said. से मत कौन कहले you are in for it, tit for tat. नहीं कि आमर कथार अच्छी tit for tat. तुम्हें जहाँ करछ you are meant for that. You had to take the punishment. So do you know what you have done? जानछो ना नहीं कौन करछ? It is Ameri. He is in the 6th form. His name is Ameri. He belongs to 6th form. So 6th class ro pila. So he is head of his house. He is the captain of his house. He is the head of his house. He is champion at gym. She is gym re champion. He has got his football colors. So he had so much positions. ये बहुत सारा ता विषय मते कहले जे से होची गोटे कौन चैंपियन एट जिम, से होची हेड ऑफ द हाउस, तांकर हाउस रो कैप्टेन से, एंड ही बिलोंग्स टू 6th फॉर्म. ही हैज गॉट हिज फुटबॉल कलर्स आल्सो. से फुटबॉल रे भी गोटे भलो प्लेयर. दे कंटिन्यूड टू रिकाउंट हिज मेनी टाइटल्स टू फेम and reverence and to dilate upon the awful retribution that would fall upon me, and they gave me a number of dialogues, a number of positions of that boy. आउ से होची आमेरे and जहार की इतनी सारा क्वालिटी अच्छी मत एमती कही कही कि दे मेक ए फियर इनसाइड मी. मो मन भीतर गोटे भय क्रिएट करदेले. दे कंटिन्यू टू रिकाउंट हिज many titles to fame and reverence to dilate upon the awful retribution that would fall upon me. I got kind of feared. मु बहुत डरी गली and I thought I would be punished definitely. मु निश्चित भाव में मते punishment से दबो and I would be बहुत मते and it would be a fatal one. बहुत भारी पड़ जीवो मो ऊपर. I decided what should be done. मु किसी बुझी पालिनी कौन करिबा उचित. I could not understand what should be done at that moment. मु बुझी पाली नहीं मते कौन करिबा को पड़िबो. So then I was convulsed, I was disturbed, I was confused, not only with terror but with the guilty of sacrilege. And not with terror, मु खाली भय रे थरिली नहीं, मु टिके थरिली, बहुत भय होई गली. खाली थरी डर रे नहीं, but with the guilty of sacrilege, because I have done a great blunder. Sacrilege means great blunder which should not be done, and guilty of sacrilege means unhappy feeling for doing something wrong or sinful. I have done a great mistake, I have done a blunder. That's why I felt very ashamed. मतलब लाज मानला. So how could I tell his rank when he was in a bath towel and so small? How could I guess? He was so small. आज he was so small in figure. से इतने छोटे देखा जाउतिले. So how could I guess it? जे से मोठारु senior बोली. So I determined to apologize immediately. So I decided to beg sorry and to beg excuse from him. मु decide कली जे whatever may be I should do that. मते जे तांको सॉरी कहबा को पड़िबो. So I did the same thing. I also said him sorry, but the result was nothing. So I determined to apologize immediately. I approached the potentate. That means potentate means the bulky figure. Potentate ता पाखु गली in lively trepidation. थरी ता पाखु गली and ताकु कहली and told him I am very sorry. So I said I mistook you for a 4th form boy. I thought you as a 4th form boy. I thought you as the 4th class student because you are so small. You are so small in figure. He did not seem at all flattered by this, but he was seen not to be convinced. मते लागिला नहीं से किछि convinced है जी बोली. मते लागिला नहीं से किछि मो कथरे बुझिछि बोली. So flattered by this. So I added in a most brilliant recovery. Finally I decided what should be done. कौन करी भाबिली. So I thought to tell my father who is a great man. I said him, my father who was a great man, who is a great man is also small. तो मुझे कहली my father who is a very great man, who is a very great political leader, he is also very small. से भी बहुत छोटिया, बहुत छोटो साइज रा. At this he laughed. मुझे मो फादर कथा कहली व्हेन आई टोल्ड हिम अबाउट माय फादर एंड टोल्ड ही वाज आल्सो वेरी स्मॉल मैन लाइक हिम सो देन ही लाफ्ड and after some general remarks about my cheek and how I had better be careful in the future signified that the incident was closed. So by giving some remark and giving some kana amre kichi remark about my cheek mo galuk se dhari kichi कहले and how I had better he also advised me not to do same thing not to do the same thing in future आउ पछरे ए सब काम करिवो नै and by that moment हमर कहला this incident was closed and incident एठी बंद हे गला everything was as usual सब जिंस पुनी as usual हे गला so आमे जानिली जे examination is a very typical for each and everyone though he is a good student जदियो गोटे good student अछि but he is also very anxious regarding the exam when he or she hears about the exam so there is a kana मन भितर गोटे आसीबो गोटे हमर गोटे kana भय आसीबो there is a fear of doing good or bad मोर किछि भलो हो जिवो कि किछि खराब हो जिवो and that makes each and everyone so anxious बहुत समस्त को anxious कर दिए and each and everyone gets feared of examination and our narrator our Winston Churchill he was also the same thing he also got feared about the examination when he crossed his 12th birthday he thought जे he had to face some incident like amar jo kana tang he had to face some examinations and then he had to suffer for 7 years with in the same inhospitable region तांको ए डिफिकल्टी एरिया भितरे he had to struggle तांको 7 वर्ष तांको struggle करबा को पड़थिला and when he gave the entrance examination at Harrow he also could not give any answer for his question paper and finally he wrote down the his name at the top of the paper and then he gave the mark he gave the question mark 1 then he gave inverted and inverted and then gave a bracket and finally nothing more से आउ किछि लिखि पाले नै finally he could write down that much से एतिकी तांकर लिखि के आसिले but the copy was checked by Dr. Weldon the headmaster was a man who could find out the inner ability the inner how capable of a student is what a student is capable he could find out and that's why he decided and qualified and gave qualification to the narrator finally he got qualified se qualified he gale and se tankara attend kale tankara puni admission he gala as his name started with S at the name of the teacher name of the students were written according to the alphabetical order so as his name was started with S and his name was just above the two of the below tankar dui jana ko upar ku thila but unfortunately these two also left the school due to some important reason or due to their illness and finally he got down tankar nada pachuka asila but at the same time the role of calling at Harrow and Eton both are different from each other and when his name came and when his name was called he was at the last stage and that's why people commented him so why he is not first why is at last because he belonged to Randolph Churchill because Randolph Churchill was his father and he was a forefront political leader and he was a great dignitary and that's why each and everyone expected him to come first but unfortunately the narrator would come at the last of the students सब पछरे समस्त पछरे ही से जानती and that's why he was at the last position and he always heard the same comment से सब बेले से comment को सुनंती जे why he is not at the first position and why he comes at last so finally he got admission in Harrow School admission हे गला so normally our students they love to play prank with each other हम normally at the boyhood age during boyhood age each and everyone wants to play prank with their schoolmates समस्त चाहती तांकर prank करिबा को prank होची बदमाशी तो मजाक करिबा पे अल one day the narrator also did the same thing हमर narrator से भी सेया कले he come कले and there was a great bath in the our swimming bath in the school our Harrow रे there was a great swimming bath and it was more than a bath swimming pool which was a greater than the bath and it was just like a बेंड ऑफ द रिवर से गोटे रिवर रो गोटे बेंड परी दिसला एंड देयर वर टू ब्रिजेस ऑन इट तापर दुईटा ब्रिज भी थिला एंड ईच ऑफ देम आल्सो कने एंजॉयड देमसेल्व्स ईच ऑफ देम एंजॉयड हिमसेल्व्स देयर से समस्त निज को एंजॉय करती दे टुक देयर बाथ्स फॉर आवर्स बाय ईटिंग एनोरमस बंस से सब खाती आ बहुत समय दे एंजॉयड देयर with the help of asphalt margin कहले आमर जो ट्यूब सब ए ट्यूब को आनिकी से माने पानी भितर पकईकि ता भितर पशिकी बहुत समय से माने गाधाती एंड दे एंजॉयड देमसेल्व्स देयर फॉर ए लॉन्ग पीरियड वन डे द नरेटर saw someone in a meditative posture, someone standing in a meditative posture, so he thought why not take a joke, so he decided and go there and finally kankale he did the same thing. He pushed the boy into the swimming pool and finally the boy came out of the foam पानी भितर बाहरी आसिला and seized him in his ferocious grip तार ग्रिप रे ताको जाबुड़ी धरले and hurled him into the deepest part of the pool पानी भितर को ताको छिंचाड़ी फोपाड़ देले. Finally he came out on the other side आरो साइड रे जाई बाहरी पड़ले and he found himself surrounded by the younger boys तांग सब घेरी जाइछन समस्ते and each of them also told कौन कहते जे यू आर मींट फॉर दैट तते एटा दरकार थिला एंड यू विल बी पनिश्ड हाउ डू यू नो ही इज अमेरी तुम्हें तो जानी ना से होचंदी अमेरी एंड ही बिलोंग टू 6th फॉर्म से होचंदी 6th फॉर्म रा he also got his football colors he was a champion at gym he also the captain of his house so these were the titles everyone has said to the narrator. Finally he felt guilty for doing such a great blunder ये जो भूल करथिले तापाई से निज को गिल्टी फील कले एंड फाइनली ही आल्सो सेड सॉरी एंड ही कुड सी अमेरी वुड नॉट सैटिस्फाइड Ameri has not been satisfied with his words. That's why he decided to tell and that his father who was a great man was also very small and by this he could see Ameri got satisfied and smiled at him. तो फाइनली आड़क चाहे कि आमेरी हसिला एंड फाइनली he also gave him some advice not to do such things later, not to do such things in future. ये होची तुम्हारा 3rd unit. Then 4th unit. Isn't preparation for an examination very much painstaking? Yes, 100%. Isn't preparation? Yes, preparation for examination is very much painstaking. बहुत कष्ट is very difficult. Children adopt many peculiar ways to face an examination. We the children, भी छुआ थिलु when we were children, we also did the same thing. We also adopted different ways and to face an examination. Nowadays, normally our children, they also adopt different peculiar ways to take tea in the midnight and so on so. Different peculiar ways they adopt also. Ways to face an examination. Normally, children adopt many peculiar ways to face an examination. Read the following unit of the text and note how the writer makes his preparation for the preliminary examination. Our writer is Winston Churchill, how he prepared himself for the preliminary examination for the army. आम जो आर्मी एग्जाम है बेले so how he prepared himself for the examination, preliminary examination for the army, preliminary examination पे how he prepared himself. Look at I have been so fortunate to see a good deal more of him. So I am so fortunate. I have been so fortunate to see a good deal more of him. I am so fortunate. मैं इतने fortunate थी. I was so fortunate in times when 3 years difference in age is not so important as it is at school. आम normally कौन हुए ना there is a huge gap between the seniors and juniors. बहुत gap रो भी पिला मान थांती. But ये जो gap of the age do not matter. Normally doesn't matter in the later years. ये सब later years रे after आमर बहुत दिन परे when we come to our lives आमे तो आम life को आसु and to earn something for our life सेते बेले there ये जो age gap and doesn't matter. ये किसी matter ही करे नहीं. So we were afterwards to be cabinet colleagues for a good many years. बट आफ्टर दैट आम ये बहुत बड़ हो गलु सो वी आर आफ्टरवर्ड्स देन व्हेन द टाइम कम्स टू अर्न समथिंग जिते आम लाइफ रे किसी रोजगार कर समय आसला एट दैट टाइम वी वेयर आफ्टरवर्ड्स टू बी कैबिनेट कलीग्स वी ऑल्सो वर्कड आज कलीग्स आम सब सांग ही काम कलु आज कलीग्स मीन्स सहकर्मी सो व्हेन वी वर्कड आज कलीग्स फॉर ए गुड मेनी इयर्स आमको बहुत दिन एकाठी आम काम करछु सो ये जो दैट इयर्स ये जो एज गैप डजंट मैटर आज दे वर सीनियर्स एंड आज वी वर जूनियर्स देयर वाज नथिंग सो इट वाज थॉट incongruence that while I apparently stagnated in the lowest firm, though I was in the lowest firm and they were the seniors, that Ameri was very senior to me. So in comparison to Ameri, it was thought incongruence that while I apparently stagnated in the lowest firm, मो लोएस्ट फर्म रे आई वाज स्टैग्नेटेड किसी दिन रही जाइथिली आई शुड गेट ए प्राइज ओपन टू द होल स्कूल सो आई गट ए प्राइज ओपन टू द होल स्कूल फॉर रेसाइटिंग टू द हेडमास्टर 1200 लाइन्स ऑफ मकाउलेज लेज ऑफ एंशिएंट रोम ए मकाउलेज कर ए जो लेज ऑफ एंशिएंट रोम को गोटे सुंदर पोएम थिला जोटा कि व्हिच कंसिस्ट्स ऑफ 1200 लाइन्स ए 1200 लाइन्स रो पोएम को आई रेसाइटेड विदाउट एनी मिस्टेक सो इन ए कंपटीशन आई रेसाइटेड द मकाउलेज लेज ऑफ एंशिएंट रोम without any mistake I recited the 1200 lines poem without any mistake I recited and to the headmaster so then I also got a prize without making a single mistake. I also succeeded in passing the preliminary examination for the army while still almost at the bottom of the school, though I was at the bottom of the school, but I got qualified in the preliminary examination for the army. किंतु आमरा आर्मी रा प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जाम रे आई ऑल्सो गट क्वालिफाइड मु आराम से क्वालिफाई करी गली दो आई वाज द बटम ऑफ द स्कूल मु किंतु स्कूल रे नॉर्मली कोथरे रहउतिली दो आई वाज इन द लास्ट पोजीशन दो आई वाज इन द लोएस्ट फर्म बट आई कुड क्वालिफाइड फॉर द प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन इन द आर्मी बट हाउ कुड आई क्वालिफाई मु कली केमती क्वालिफाइड देखो दिस एग्जामिनेशन seemed to have called forth a very special effort on my part. ये थिला मो पाई गोटे स्पेशल एग्जाम एंड मोर लाइफ रा द मोस्ट स्पेशल एग्जाम इन माय लाइफ फॉर मेनी बॉयज आज फार अबव मी इन द स्कूल failed in it. So many boys who were very senior to me and who were very clever in school and they also failed in it. So for many boys far above me, those who were very cleverer than me also failed in it. They could not qualify in the preliminary examination in the army. So they also failed in it. I also had a piece of good luck, but I had a good luck. मोटिके भल से दिन थिला. We knew that among other questions we should be asked to draw from memory a map of some country or other. But I was sure that a question would come about drawing the map of a country. I was sure. I mean normally जानी थी जोटा कि आमर गोटे कॉमन जिनस जे नॉर्मली आमर प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जाम रे आर्मी रो गोटे आसीबो कोन ड्रॉ ए मैप ऑफ एनी कंट्री व्हाट जहाँ भी गोटे कंट्री रो कोन हेले को कंट्री रो आसीबो. आई वाज श्योर अबाउट दैट एंड दैट्स व्हाई मु तार प्रीवियस नाइट रे मु कोन कली सो द नाइट बिफोर बाय वे ऑफ फाइनल प्रिपरेशन I put the names of all the maps in the atlas into a hat and drew out New Zealand. आम समस्ते कौन करूँ नॉर्मली आम गोटे लटरी ड्र करूँ आम जो लटरी गोटे पकाऊ सब आम लकी ड्र तक कहती. सो ये जो लकी ड्र जो आम कौन करूँ कि ना सब लिखिदेले ए आम द नैरेटर ऑल्सो डिड द सेम थिंग सब ना को लिखिदेले तक सब गुड़ा करदेले एंड देन से कौन कले आई पुट द नेम्स ऑफ ऑल द मैप्स इन द atlas into a hat and drew out New Zealand. I also did the same thing. I wrote the name of all the countries in each paper. सब गोटे पेपर रे गोटे कंट्री ना सब लिखिदेली and then I put it हला in the hat मुता गोटे टोपी भितर पकई देली and ताको एंती कौन करली हलई देली and then I drew out New Zealand. Finally I drew out one of them and that was New Zealand. सेटा थिला New Zealand. I applied my good memory to the geography of that dominion. तो I applied मु भल भाबे तो thoroughly I read it and I also applied good memory to the geography of that dominion. ए जो country ता विषय मु मोर पूरा दम रे लागिली. I also gave my complete effort towards memorizing, towards remembering the country and each and everything तार geographical पूरा complete geographical elements को माने रखी देली. Sure enough, the first question in the paper was draw a map of New Zealand. So finally I got the first question, draw a map of New Zealand. तो हमारा मौके पे चौका नहीं की. So finally I got the question, draw a map of New Zealand. So when I saw it, तो जा है थी वो मो मन बहुत खुशी है. I got very much satisfied. When I saw the first question of the paper, कौन थिला, draw a map of New Zealand. Map of New Zealand जितने draw करिबा को देखिली, so I got satisfied. So this was what is called at Monte Carlo Anen Plain. That means मौके पे चौका है. So ये थिला मो पाई गोटे झकास आउ एटा मो पाई गोटे झटका थिला. And I ought to have been paid 35 times my stake. मुझे पढ़ापी जी पढ़ी थी मुझे बहुत किसी पाईगली. आई हैव बीन पेड मते मते बहुत दाम मते मिलला. मुझे करी सो 35 टाइम्स माय स्टेक मुझे परिश्रम करी. आई गॉट मोर देन 35 टाइम्स my result. So however I certainly got paid very high marks for my paper. तो मते सेथि पई बहुत मार्क भी मते मिली थिला. And as a result I got a great success in my life. And finally the clever students who were above me also failed in the exam, army exam, and they could not get a real life. They could not get a satisfactory life, which I got it. So that's why according to Spencer Churchill, the name normally amara jetebali school manakare when the names of the students were printed in alphabetical order, his name was started with S, as his name was Spencer Churchill and his name was started with S. That's why he was just below, he was just above the two students below the school. So that's why he was also very much commented, he was also very much criticized by each and everyone every day. Kaiki na आज he belonged to Randolph Churchill and tanga bapa thile Randolph Churchill and he was a forefront political leader, and that's why each and everyone tried to comment him. So samaste bhabanti kana everyone expected he must be the first one, but unfortunately as his name started with S, his roll number normally was called at the last of the students. And finally he heard every day, he heard comment every day, he heard criticized every day. So he got frustrated. Se bhabuthile je I was such a poor student, I was such a dunce, mu ette gote slow learner, and I was commented, that's why, but it was not exactly. And due to his name he was the last boy of the class, and finally he was criticized, that's why. But he could not give importance, he did not give importance on his name or on his position in the school, but he got a great success in his future life as he was so much talented. And he also got complete advantage from reading English frequently, as he was in lower firm for the 3 to 4 months. He also read it frequently and he got a complete idea about the British language, which was a noble one. He got everything about that. He knew how to make a sentence. So finally he got a great life, great success in his life.